Need a lift? I'm Jake.
I'm Emily.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Film Funding Group live broadcast. We have a special guest, screenwriter Claire Hutchinson. Let me bring her on, guys. Hello, Claire.
Hi.
How's it going?
Mr. Phalancis. Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let me get this screen off real quick. There we go. So I'm hoping that our people who were watching got a chance to watch the trailer to your awesome little film called Lucky's Treasure. So I would definitely love to start off with just a short bio. Tell us your journey, how you got into the film industry, and what made you decide to become a screenwriter.
Okay, well, my journey started as a young child. That's all I wanted to be, was a writer. So I'd be writing short stories, and I'd stage neighborhood plays, write plays and that. And then I just was drawn into movies. As a child, I loved movies and TV, and I said, that's what I want to be. And I don't know why I said that, but that's what I said, that's the kind of writer I want to be, as a screenwriter. So this was when I was 17, I announced to my family, I'm going to be a screenwriter, even though I lived in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, which is 2,000 miles from LA, but that didn't stop me. I still wanted to be a screenwriter. And I took a master's in English, and then I took 2 screenwriting certificates from UCLA, and then I just got really empowered by becoming a Christian, and my goal became to bring good, moral, uplifting values to the screen through my writing. So that's been my goal ever since, is to bring good things to the screen, like good human stories, uplifting values, good moral messages, things like that. So
that's fantastic, Claire. And you actually went to UCLA, correct?
Yes, I did. And it's a very good school. I can't say enough about it. I had great teachers. I had Jim Makachuk, who did Roswell, the movie Roswell, and a bunch of other things. And I found out he was a friend of my cousin's. I couldn't believe it. I later found that out. and then I had Jim Schmerer, and he was a great teacher. I learned a lot from him. And I also had Scott Myers, who sold just about to every major studio. He sold a script. He did Canine, Alaska, Trojan War. He was just a great teacher. He won Outstanding Teacher of the Year a couple years, and he even became my mentor, where I'd send him my scripts and he would critique them. And I don't know if he did that for a lot of people, but he did that for me. And he's also now on the blacklist. He does that, I think it's a blog called Go Into the Story, where he gives all his expertise on screenwriting, and he's just very knowledgeable, and he's a great teacher.
And Claire, do you mind sharing how rigorous UCLA really is, especially their screenwriting program, which, in case the audience doesn't know, is UCLA is the most prestigious screenwriting school in the world. So it's really intense. It's right in the Mecca of LA. So if you don't mind sharing that experience.
Well, you have to be writing a lot in UCLA. You can't slough off, that's for sure. We had it as a chat because I took it online, which is the same as going there, except it's on a chat. And so you just had to be prepared every time to share at least a couple scenes that you had written, and you also had to critique other people's scenes that they had written. So you had to be on the ball all the time. by critiquing others' work and writing your own, you actually get really good as a screenwriter and as a script analyst. You know what's wrong in the script, how it can be fixed. You just sort of see it clearly because you're doing it so often. You understand structures and characters and how a scene should flow and, dialogue. So it was, it was a rigorous, but it taught me so much. I went through the master's in English, as I said, but that really didn't teach me anything about writing a script. I knew about story and, different stories and how they were written and stuff like that, but I did not know how to write a script at all. So UCLA was the best.
And what was the first screenplay you actually read?
Read?
You have material, yeah. Like when I'm assuming since you had you were an English major,
yeah,
and you entered the Screenwriters program in UCLA. What was the first screenplay that you read or was given, like as far as like part of the curriculum or the course?
Yeah. Okay. The one that I remember was Pirates of the Caribbean. And they gave us the whole script to read, and we also saw the movie as well. And it just was written fabulously because they do things in there that are called callbacks. That's one thing I remember. It's like when at certain instances in the script, they'll repeat a phrase or a line, and it calls back to a previous incident in the script, and it just makes the script richer as they repeat that line here and there. It adds to the theme of the script. So that's the one script I do remember well, was Pirates of the Caribbean. And I just love the comedy. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, the inciting incident occurs on page 10 to 15, and that's when the protagonist's world is all jumbled. It becomes like there's this big incident that happens that sets him on the trajectory to go into Act 2. So either, like, let's just say the inciting incident is he's going along and his life is really nice, and then the inciting incident is that his mother dies, and he was really close to his mother, and this just sort of rips his world apart. So that inciting incident has to be something pretty big to set him off on going on a journey, which is the whole point of the script, on a journey into Act 2 and dealing with his fears or overcoming obstacles, reconciling with the death of his mother, etc., etc. And so you have to have a pretty big inciting incident on page 10 to 15. We had to write one every quarter. So it was like, yeah, we had to actually start right away. I think what happened on the first round of that was they made us write a beat sheet, which is an outline. So they actually didn't in the first class, they didn't actually make us write a script. It was a beat sheet. So you had to have it completed. So that would be like a 10-page outline of the whole script. And then in the next class, the second class, they made you write the script. Yeah. The very first screenplay that I wrote was called Caleb the Colt, believe it or not. And I had been writing that for like 3 years off and on. It ended up being an animated musical about the donkey that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. It was a comedy, actual comedy. It was about this rebellious little donkey who wanted to just play and have fun and be with his friends, and he didn't want to take life seriously. and he finally had to, and then he allowed Jesus to ride him into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. So, yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, with Caleb the Colt, the first analysis was that it didn't have a structure that was big enough. So I had to revise the structure on that. So it's hard to explain, but I had to do more with the script than just make it a nice little story. There had to be, like, you know, high points and low points and things like that, you know. So I had to do that. And then the second round of analysis on that was that had to work on character. I really had to work on making these characters interesting, making them funny, and things like that. So that was the second analysis on it. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, as I said, I had to work on character next. And, you know, I had to make each character have an arc, which is a character has to start at a certain place at the beginning emotionally, or his perspective on the world is one thing at the beginning, and then he grows and changes through the events of the story. He grows and changes. It's almost like it's character growth, and that's what a lot of stories are about, is character development and character growth. How do they um, grow up? Especially with Caleb the Colt, it was about a little baby boy donkey who just wanted to play and have fun, and, you know, he didn't want to do any work or be responsible. So you can see where the character growth would come. Like, he has to go through different incidents where he starts to grow up and be mature and take responsibility and all that. So yeah, I had to work on that as well. Yeah. Yeah, so you have to really make use of your dialogue and your action, just make it so succinct, so pointed that they can't mistake what's happening. And you really have to work on an outline. I outline my scripts before I even start them, you know, and if there's research involved, I also research them before I even start them. But the outline is where I really figure out, okay, how does act 1, 2, and 3 go? What's the inciting incident? What's the all is lost moment where the character at the end of Act 2 loses everything and he thinks he's lost everything. Then he overcomes that, and in Act 3 defeats all the enemies and becomes victorious, right? So I had to, in the outline, you outline all that, so then when you are ready to actually write the script, you already have an outline. So all you're doing is just following that outline and filling it all in. So it's really a lot easier to write an outline first, you know? I think for me, at the very beginning, it was story structure. You follow Aristotle's Act 1, 2, and 3, and also there's what's his name, Sid Field. He has an Act 1, 2, and 3 structure in his book, and I think Chris Vogler, Chris, he also has that as well. And you can actually get them online. If you Google story structure templates, they all come up online. So you just print those out and say, okay, this is what happens, etc., at these points in the story. There's plot point 1 at the end of Act 1, which puts the character into Act 2. And then there's plot point 2 at the end of Act 2, which is the all is lost moment. So you have to put all of that together in your mind, and that's what I do in the outline, is I put it all together in my mind. So I'd say first thing I had to work on was knowing the story structure of a script. You know, you have to know it. And then after I mastered that, I had to work on characterization and the character arc. Make sure there's some kind of character arc, especially for the main character. Sometimes, secondary characters, they will sometimes have one. Of course they will. But, little minor characters may not. But you just definitely have to have a character arc for the primary character. Otherwise, you don't really have a story. If the character does not change, does not develop, does not overcome obstacles, fears, etc., you really don't have a story. You're just writing something that, the audience won't be interested in. Yeah, the historical genre takes a lot longer, because one script, it took me 7 months to do it because it was a lot of research. It was on World War II and the euthanasia campaign in World War II. So that took like 7 months. Yeah, so historical definitely takes longer. Things like drama, romantic comedy, take less time. Animation is sort of in between that. Sometimes you might have to do a bit of research, and in animation you have to always make sure there's action, because animation entails action. So you have to always look at the scene you're writing and say, okay, where does the action happen? What are they doing physically, in that scene? So that could take, in between historical and drama is animation somewhere. So you do have to figure out these things before you write, and while you're writing, of course. And yeah. Well, for me, it takes a lot less time now. It takes me about, if there's no research involved, then that's completely no research. It only takes me about, I'd say, 2 weeks for a first draft. And then yeah, 2 weeks. But you know what? My first script took 3 years. Caleb the Cole, on and off for 3 years because I wasn't a seasoned writer, and that's normal. If you're not a seasoned writer, it can take up to like 3 years. But now I can do it in like 2 weeks for a first draft. And then I'd leave it for like another 2 weeks and I'll go back to it and rewrite it and rewrite it. So I'm thinking a ballpark estimate for a good solid draft I would like to spend about, I'd say, 2 months on a solid final draft, Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Okay, well, that was, I believe it could have been 2004 or 5. I can't remember exactly what year, but it was when I used to go to this ICVM conference. It's called International Christian Visual Media, and there's producers there who are looking for writers. So I ended up working for Jeffrey Worthington, and I wrote. He's what? No, no, he's not. That's not the same one. No, no. But he was doing a World War II documentary. So I ended up working for between around 2.5 years working on this World War II documentary, and I was paid for all that work. And it was the whole of World War II, believe it or not, that I had to study the whole thing. And there were interviews with World War II vets that were in there and all that stuff. It was like a mammoth project. I don't know why God made me do that for 2.5 years, but I did. Yeah, yeah. It was called For the Love of Freedom. It was called. Yeah. It never got produced. No, no. Yeah, I got paid. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, around 2004, I think. Something like that. Yeah. Well, there's different ways. If you are pitching like through an email, you would have to have a log line, which is a 1 sentence pitch, which usually talks about the antagonist, or actually first the protagonist, which is the main character, and the antagonist, like what is the main character facing, and then you give a bit about the ending in that 1 sentence. Like for this one script I did called Status Update, I'd say it's about Facebook and jealousy, and a woman who's jealous of the lifestyles that her friends and family are living on Facebook concocts phony status updates to outdo them, but then her life unravels when she has to stage events to pretend that she's living these status updates. So it's got to be something that you talk about the protagonist, what they're doing, what are the opposing forces, and then give us a bit about the ending, and that's all in one sentence. So try to get, in one sentence, even if you're giving an elevator pitch, which is a face-to-face pitch, try to get it all in one sentence or two sentences at the most, and I like to start with a theme, like, get them interested. Like I said, it's about Facebook and jealousy. So people are interested right off the bat. Okay, what is the connection here, And so then you go on to your pitch, which is, as I said, try to keep it down to 1 to 2 sentences. And in an email pitch, you want to follow that with a 1 to 2 paragraph synopsis of acts 1, 2, and 3. So the rule is usually take 1 sentence or 2 sentences for act 1, take a couple sentences for act 2, and then a couple sentences for act 3, and just give them an overview of what happens, like a synopsis of what happens in the story. So then they can decide, okay, this is for me or this is not for me, and you've done your job. And also at the end, give any awards or credits or any recognition you've got, or even anything you've done or any degrees you have, anything at all that would make them interested in either buying the pitch or hiring you. And at the very end, you give your contact information. Yeah, I try not to make it any more than 3 to 5 minutes, the synopsis of it. And you don't want to bore them, because a lot of people just don't want to listen for more than 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes they're going to know whether they want it or not. So I would not go on for 10-15 minutes on this one pitch. Just don't do that. You want to really give them nothing that they could say no to. So the less you say, the better off you are, because you may have a better chance of getting sold, Hmm. A lot of them do not. They'll ask, what is the budget range? To be honest, they ask, what do you think this can be done for? The amount. So you should have something um, there about the amount that you think this can be made for, because they're not just looking for the story. They're looking, okay, does this story fit my budget range? That's But a lot of them will ask that. I've been asked that more so than who am I, what I've done. They will sometimes ask, is she produced? Has she produced a script, or has she been produced already? Yes, they'll ask that, but when it comes down to it, like I have an agent and they'll just say, well, what do you think the budget of this is? They never used to do that. A lot of times they didn't. They'd ask, like, are you produced? And you know, but no, a lot of times now it's more like, you know, they're looking for things that they can actually do. They will ask what the genre is. Like, is this horror? Is this drama? Is this comedy? Because they are also looking for something that they connect with. You know, a lot of the rejections I get are where they'll say, this just isn't resonating with me. I just don't connect with this. So genre is important to them because, you know, a lot of people work just in, say, the animation genre. A lot of people will work just in horror genre. So they'll ask that question about genre too. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, it comes with experience. I understand. You know, when you get doing a lot of these things, you can sort of gauge just by the script you've written what you think the budget range may be. And I understand that a lot of people, a lot of screenwriters do not know that when you're first starting out. So, you know, it's okay if you don't know that. You know, just submit it if they ask for it. Say, you know, say something like, you know, I'm not sure at this moment, but you know, I can, you know, maybe you would know, you know, something like that, you know, but you know, just be honest, you know, because you know, knowing about budget range comes with a lot of experience writing scripts. It really does. So don't worry about it if you don't know it, you know. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I've done that a lot on my one pages. At the bottom, I'll have um, comparable scripts to this one, and I'll have like three or four um, scripts that I'll have what they were made for, what the budget was, what it grossed at the box office, etc., etc. And so I'll put that on the bottom of my one pages so they'll be more inclined to know, okay, this is what this script is like, and this is the budget range for this script. And I get that information off IMDb Pro. Yeah, 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 Yeah. Yeah. It's not every day because I'm writing a lot. So it's more like once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I do it through a list that I've compiled of all the producers that I want to contact. I've tried services, and I won't name them, but that send out your query letter en masse, but I find they just don't work as well as having your own list of names and contact information of people you really want to pitch to, and you know what budget range they're interested, you know what genre they're interested in, so you can really like go to town and you're more comfortable pitching to these people than people you have no clue what they like and all this. So I do that. I have a list and I email them. And sometimes, I'll advertise on Facebook and LinkedIn and I'll advertise my services. So I'll do all of that, but it's not every week. It's more like every 2 weeks, and it depends on how busy I am. And I also have a Writers Guild of America agent who pitches for me. So a lot of that I don't have to do because he'll do that.
And now how long did it take you to get an agent actually?
Not very long. It's a funny story. I wasn't living in Winnipeg at the time, and I had a friend who was the only other screenwriter in Winnipeg that I knew.
Oh, really?
And his agent ended up being my agent because he said he would give this agent, my script, Caleb the Colt, if it was good enough. So I kept on working on it, and finally I said, I'd like to give it to this agent. So I got in touch with this agent and he took me on, and that was pretty quick. It was in like end of 2004 that he took me on as an agent. And,
wow.
and I've had him ever since then. So,
and just to clarify some misconceptions that filmmakers or screenwriters might have, what actually does an agent do for a screenwriter or for talent? Because there's a lot of misconceptions, like they're actually trying to sell your screenplay, or they just give you the opportunity or give you leads, and it's obviously your responsibility to go through the motion of pitching and setting up the meetings.
Well, it's sort of both. He has his contacts into studios and production companies, and he'll pitch my script to production companies that he thinks are appropriate for that script. And I'll have my own list that I've gathered through the years of contacts, and I'll pitch them, So it's sort of both. I have to say, like, the reason I got Lucky's Treasure was because I was a member of International Christian Visual Media, which had nothing to do with my agent. I just signed up for it, went there, and then they gave me the networking book, which had David White's contact information in it, and he's the owner of Pureflix. So I emailed him and asked for a meeting in LA. And I went down there, and I went with my agent, and he drove, so he was part of it.
That's awesome.
But a lot of it was, I guess it was a joint effort. I really didn't want to drive LA, so my agent was with me. So, I mean, it's both. I wouldn't say you should just give up pitching when you get an agent. You got to still be proactive. You really do. But the agent can add to that with his own base of contacts. So it's really good to have an agent because you can get in doors that you may not get into on your own. And plus, a lot of companies say they don't want any unsolicited scripts, and then you have to go through a Writers Guild of America agent or through an entertainment lawyer. So it's good to have an agent.
Now, Claire, based on the one of the questions that I gave you, and I just want to remind people how important it is to always follow up. And I want you to discuss how long it took you when you first contacted David from Pureflix before you guys found the perfect timing, the perfect project, the perfect team to get that whole get the motion going for Lucky's Treasure.
Okay. Well, from the time I met David down in LA, it took approximately 8 years. So you just don't know who will give you that job or give you that writing assignment. So what happened was that, like, during those 8 years, I had pitched David quite a bit with my scripts and outlines and stuff like that. And he liked them, but he never took any of them to produce. So it was like I still kept doing it. I didn't give up. And I sent him this cowgirl outline that I had done. And he liked it, but nothing came of it. So it was 2015. And then he emails me and says, I've got this producer friend called Shane Hawks of Grace Alone Films, and he wants someone to do a girl and a horse script. And I remembered your cowgirl outline, and I thought you might be the perfect person to do that. And so I said, sure, like, let me know his contact information. And so Shane and I got together, and that's how it started, through David White, actually. So you just don't know where the door is going to open. That's what I'm saying. You just don't know. So you got to just go out there and get meetings. And if you think nothing's going to come of them, you just don't know. It might actually be the perfect meeting, but it might be years from now that you'll get your big break. Or it might be really quick. You just don't know in this business. As they say in Hollywood, nobody knows anything.
Nobody knows anything. And it's so important because I had this really great conversation with an actress friend of mine. And, I mentioned to her that you have to remind people that you're an actress. Nobody's going to hunt you down. Nobody's going to be inquiring about you per se, not because it's nothing even remotely personal, because they have 1,000 things going at any given day. And I'm very curious, Claire, like, how often would you remind or just follow up with David? Was it every quarter, every 6 months, every year? Just like, hey, how's it going, David? This is a new project that I'm working on.
Well, I have a newsletter called the Christian Screenwriters Newsletter. So I think I did 2 interviews with him for that. And then I'd pitch him scripts. So I would say maybe every quarter. But when God's Not Dead came out and it was such a huge success, I immediately emailed him and congratulated him. And then after that, a couple of weeks after that, I pitched him another script.
Nice.
So I mean, it wasn't every day. No, it was maybe every 3 months, every 4 months, something like that. But I always kept in contact with them.
Just so they can stay fresh in your head.
Yeah.
And not only that, because I have to let the community know it's not personal. It's just not the right project for the right producer. Because like I can have a conversation 2 weeks from now, and then I have a filmmaker that's working on a faith-based film, and then what's the first thing that's going to come in my head? Oh yeah, I know Claire. Let me make an introduction. It's just simple as that. It has to be the perfect. Those things definitely need to align. It needs a perfect producer, director, screenwriter at the perfect time, and it's just so important and imperative for people to really follow up. That's almost seems to be like a lost art, because when I started in production about 15 years ago, we didn't have mobile phones yet. It wasn't even remotely the way it is now. And every week I would call the line producers, ADs, grips, like, hey, you guys do you have any work going on?
Yeah.
Like next week, is there a commercial coming up? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think because of the digital age, we got a little bit lazy. We think an email might be sufficient. And actually a phone call, and a phone call is still, I think, the most powerful form.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
For at least an initial, conversation, because people can't tell your passion through an email. They can't hear that in your voice. They can't.
Yeah, I've noticed that when you meet people in person, it is the best form of connection. But I'm also saying to be organized, like have your list. I have a big notebook with lists of producers, their emails and contact numbers. So if you're feeling unorganized, all you have to do is get your notebook, put it in a visible place, and every couple weeks, well, what I would do is I'd email them every 2 months. I wouldn't be really, like really desperate. You don't want to come off as desperate. So I'd email them every 2 months or call them asking for work, or I'll pitch them a script. So you just got to be organized. I found lists help, like lists of producers, just keep it all together in one book. That way you can just pick up the book and then you make your contacts. It's that simple,
That's fantastic, Claire. Now, Claire, would you like to discuss with the community as far as the services that you offer as a script analysis? Whether it's script coverage, a real breakdown, and also are you open to be hired as a screenwriter on other people's projects?
Okay, first of all, script coverage. I've been doing being a script analyst for over 15 years. And I can do, I offer 2 types of services. One is coverage, which is about a 2 to 3 page analysis, which covers all the points, and it has a chart with it. So you'll get a condensed version of the full script analysis, which is 8 to 10 pages of notes, which goes really in depth, line by line, so it all depends on what you want and what you can afford. So you can ask me about that. And I've done coverage for a lot of companies, and I've gotten actual credits on those films as a script analyst. And I really enjoy doing coverage because I love trying to make a script better. I love figuring out how to make a character better, how to make the story structure better, the dialogue, etc., etc. It's really a fun thing for me, so I enjoy what I'm doing. The other thing is, yes, I'm available for hire as a screenwriter. You just have to contact me at claire@clairehutchinson.net and ask me, tell me what you've got. If you've got an outline, I like to start with at least a 5-page outline of your work so that you can get some credit on it too. Because you have to have a minimum of a 5-page outline in order to get credit on the script and get some kind of payment out of it. So you have to do that. But just let me know what you have and what you want done, and I can quote you a price and a time frame. And then just recently I got distribution through Lone Star, through Paramount, and we're looking at finished films now.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I can get possible distribution for you if I like the film, and I also could possibly, I probably could, go through Pureflix and see if they'd want to do it as well, since I know David, because he's looking for finished films as well that he can run through the Pureflix streaming channel. So I've got 2 different avenues for distribution. The first one that I mentioned is theatrical distribution, and that, as I said, is through Lone Star, Paramount, and the second one would be through Pureflix. So
excuse me, Claire, like for Lone Star, is there a specific genre that they're looking for, or is there a specific budget range, or is it based
Not
more on?
really. It's got to just be a really good film. You know, like they're pretty high up there, and the guy's been doing it for probably 40 years, so it's got to be a high quality film. You know, you know.
Claire, can you still hear me? Because I think you're breaking up a little bit. Hold on one second. I'm gonna take you to the lobby for a quick minute and see if that refreshes. There we go. Let me see if she's back on. Give me one quick second, guys. This is live, so this is stuff that happens. Okay. Hello, Claire. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Only because it's the webcam seems to be lagging just a bit.
Oh.
I think that should be okay though. Now, Claire, like as far as like you were mentioning Lone Star, it's not specific. So they're definitely open to different genres, right? It doesn't necessarily have
definitely
to be
different genres. Whereas Pureflix, you're dealing with family films, films that are PG or lower, things like that. So. Yeah.
Now, Claire, I want to make sure that the audience understands, not to take notes personally, right? Have you ever had a situation when you gave script coverage to a screenwriter and they just did not take it well, or they were, offended, or, they got real sentimental with, the feedback that you gave?
The only instance of that was when I was running a screenwriting competition back in 2007 called the Faith and Value Screenwriting Competition. And I think it was 2 people did not like the fact that they didn't win. And so they, just did not like what I said about their script. But that's the only instance. I've never had that when I actually did a one-on-one script consulting session, because I try to be very uplifting. Yeah. I don't try to be like, you're stupid or you're bad or any of that stuff at all. It's nothing like that at all. I try to just give you constructive suggestions for improvement. That's what I call it, and it's not any personal criticism or anything like that. It's just trying to help you improve your script so that it can be ready for the market.
Exactly, Claire, and that's so important because I'm pretty sure when you first began as a screenwriter, you just got random rejections. The rejections are very often, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And you have to have I'm assuming you have a really wonderful support system, whether it's family and a small circle of friends that just give you that extra push to make it through the week, maybe because you got rejected by somebody that you really admire. And so it's very important to at least to always be professional about it, and to know and to at least acknowledge that it's not personal. It's just not right for him.
Yeah, usually it's not personal. I don't think it's ever personal. I think it's just that script was just not right for that company, So.
And Claire, just to kind of start wrapping, the conversation up a little bit, I want you to just continue, if you don't mind sharing with us, like, what are you currently working on? What's a goal that you have not accomplished yet? Like, is it, whether it's, working with a certain filmmaker that you really admire, that, you would love the opportunity to work with and collaborate with? Is it something like, maybe getting a TV show, developed by, a reputable network?
Well, I just finished a 6-hour miniseries. Mm-hmm. It's over 300 pages, and I'm trying to push it to the BBC. So I would love to get something like Downton Abbey, but it's British. It's about a British journalist and I'd love to get, and it's set in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and
Nice.
80s. So it's a period piece, you know, even though that's not too long ago, but it's still a period piece. And I'd love to get it on there as one of those things like Downton Abbey, something like that. And, you know, one story I can tell you is that, you know, I've been rejected by DreamWorks twice.
Oh, wow.
On the same script, Caleb the Colt. I was rejected twice because they said it was in direct competition with Shrek, even though it's a totally different donkey.
Yeah, I was going to say, it makes no sense.
But, you know, I've always wanted to be a full-time animation writer, but I don't know if that dream will ever come true. But I'd love to get a script sold to DreamWorks. I really would.
That's the company. That's your the company that you really would love to collaborate with.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
And Claire, what would you say? What was the question? Like, how often do you go to LA, like to pitch, you know, bigger productions? Is it or is there an event that, you know, kind of makes you go to LA? And since you're there already, might as well go do a couple of rounds and pitch.
Well, I haven't been to LA in a while. I used to go a lot when I was like in the first, say, 10 years of my career.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't go there that much anymore because I'm sort of more established and I work with just a circle of producers. And if my agent can get me into LA people, he knows them all. So all they have to do is, you know, read the script, and if they want it, then I'll go down there. But I don't go there a lot now. I just don't. I'm comfortable with working with Pureflix, and I may be working with another Christian company soon. So I'm not, you know, years ago it was a big thing for me to go to LA all the time, but now it's just not. I guess I'm not as.
And that's something that I'm actually very curious about. I mean, I would say 95% of any screenwriter or filmmaker does not live in LA, and I would assume that screenwriting is one of the few positions where you can work remotely. You don't necessarily have to be physically in LA, other than maybe just like the general introduction. Like, let's say you're pitching to DreamWorks and they're really excited. Most likely they're going to invite you because they want to see you face to face, right? They want to make sure that, you know, that there's a connection. I'm assuming that that's very important as well, right?
Well, you know, with the DreamWorks pitch, they never saw me face to face. It was all through my agent.
Oh, okay.
So they knew him, but they did not know me. So I didn't have to go for any meeting for that. David White, yes, I did go for a meeting for him. You know, it all depends really on, you know, whether they want you to come there or whether they don't, or whether they just want to read the script and then make a decision based on that and then have you come down there.
Mm.
So it's different with every company really.
And that's still filtered through your agent as well, right? Like, you know, you have to stay in contact with him and then let them know, hey, well, this is in the works. And obviously if there's an offer or there's some kind of, you know, discussion of some kind of monetary compensation, then obviously, well, you have to talk to my agent. Like he's he does all the business affairs, like the contracts and you know, the prices for scripts. I always go through him to, you know, I'll discuss it with him before I offer the price to the client. You know, I like to always go through him, and you know, he negotiates with the studios, et cetera, and writes up the contracts and all that. So. And Claire, just to end the show, I would love to ask you actually two questions in two parts. What are your 3 favorite movies, and what are the 3 major advices you would give to any filmmaker or screenwriter, you know, to stay in this crazy business that we're in?
Okay, well, off the top of my head, I can think of one that I really liked, which was the Ten Commandments. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a great movie.
The production value was it was exceptional for the time. You know, there was not a lot of special effects back then.
And then, second movie I can think of that I thought was a great story and great acting and a great backdrop was Casablanca.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then the third one, I don't know. I'm not sure. I did like, I like a lot of the animations that came out in recent years. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know there have been some incredible animations that came out of DreamWorks. So just some of those. You know, the one Puss in Boots was funny. I thought that was really funny. And then, but for advice, the first thing for screenwriters, and if you're a Christian screenwriter, is to pray, because a lot of this business is up and down and you don't know when your next sale is going to be.
Yeah.
So just keep praying that God would open the doors for you. You know, if you have a good product, you know, keep praying. Second thing is keep working at it. Keep honing your craft. You know, get better and better and better. As you keep on writing, you get better and better and better. So keep working at it. Third thing is, I'd say, just, you know, be happy with what you're doing. Love the writing and love doing it. Like, no matter what happens, just love what you're doing, because it's going to show. Yeah. It's going to show when you're writing that you love what you're doing. You know, be happy about it. Be thankful that you've become a screenwriter or a producer or whatever, but just be thankful and happy that you're doing it.
That's an amazing advice, because one thing that a lot of people don't know is, like, you know, whether you're a screenwriter or a producer, you're an independent contractor.
Yeah.
You're not on salary. You're not employed. You have to. It's your responsibility to make your living, you know, and whatever. I mean, everybody has a financial scale that they're comfortable living. It might not be $1 million per se a year or whatever, but they know, you know, if as long as I can make this to cover my costs and to cover my expenses, and I'm still working as a screenwriter, like, what more do you like? What more do I want? You know, and of course, like everybody else, you know, we want to, you know, continue working on bigger stuff. And whatnot. And Claire, so once again, if you don't mind sharing where people can contact you.
Yeah, it's my website is www.clairehutchinson.net, and my email is claire@clairehutchinson.net. So I hope you contact me soon, and we'll discuss what you like to do with your writing in your career.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you, Mr. Cifuentes. Bye-bye.
Thank you, man.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.